Welcome everyone. I'm happy to have everyone here. We have a very special topic, education, and this is going to be our seventh episode. We've taken quite a bit of a break. We didn't have any meetings, monthly meetings in the summer and most of the autumn. So I'm really happy to be doing this again. And I just want to let everyone know why we are doing this. So Dr. Utheri is here, David is here, they will introduce themselves, but we are all African people. And I think that we placed a lot of emphasis in talking about how we can solve Africa's problems by starting from the wrong end, employment. How can we get jobs? How can we create jobs? How can we go study abroad? And the purpose of this meeting today is to start from the roots. And the root is the education. This is where we start molding children. This is where we start learning how to be African, how to understand our past, how to understand our future. And it's very important that I also mentioned that for myself, I didn't really appreciate my culture as much as I do now. And I think my experience being abroad, studying in European majority space, has led me to understand that the education system that we had back home did not teach us everything. And the important things are not always just about history, because they did teach us the history. They taught us, what we did, like we would learn about the Abaluya community, the Agikoyo community, my community. We would learn about the Maasai community, the Luo community. We learned this in school as children. We learned about our different instruments, the percussion instruments, the drums, everything. We had music and drama. We would have these competitions where we would sing a song in Giriama, even though I'm not from the Giriama community, it's a Bantu community. We don't speak the language, but we would do this together. There was no separating people according to their tribe, but we learned these things together. But what we were not taught is that these are not just things for we should enjoy during festivals. This is our culture. This is something we should be proud of. When they taught us what the colors meant, the colors of our clothes, the Agikoyo, we wear clothes that resemble the soil, resemble the ground. They did not teach us or allow us to wear these things at work. And so there's this disconnect where we learn our history, but we don't learn how to love ourselves. You can learn it at home from your parents, but then we live in the system where we have to be westernized to go to school. The uniform we wore, there was nothing traditional about them. When we go into the workspace after graduating, the clothing we wear, there's nothing traditional about them. So the question is, even though we're learning about our ancestry, how come that's all we do? Why do we only practice it in the classroom? And how is that affecting us when we go out there into the workplace, when we go out there and we are leaders? So this is what we want to discuss today. And I need to say that I do appreciate that I have been able to come abroad and study and be with people from different cultures. I appreciate that. But what this has led me to believe is that the confidence in my own ancestry is not taught in the same way a Finnish person is taught. It's not taught in the same way as a Swedish person. Their children, they are proud to speak Finnish and Swedish. They are not punished for doing it in school. Now in Kenya, they punished us for speaking our indigenous languages. So in one class, you're teaching me about the Isikuti, you're teaching me about Muomboko dance, but then at the same time, I'm not supposed to speak the language of the people who dance Muomboko. And a person whose instrument or their music is tied to the Isikuti, they shouldn't be able to speak their language. So there's a disconnect there. And this is what we want to discuss. And this is where we need to understand, what do we need to repair? Do we need to dismantle the entire system? Or do we need to just, solve a few things here and there? It's going to be a very deep conversation. And I need to mention to everyone here, we have a very diverse audience. I see my students are here from HAMC, that's Hame University of Applied Sciences. I'm a guest lecturer there often. And I see also, I think we do have someone from Nigeria, a student as well. And yeah, we have someone from Tanzania. We have people from different places. So meaning there are people from different, as they call, races. It's not a real thing, but yeah, that's what we call it. And I need to stress that being pro-African is not being anti anything. Being pro-African is saying I have my culture, I have my language, and I would want to prioritize them the same way other people do in other places. So this is very, very important. And we would want for people to support us. And just to be very, very clear, we love everyone, we work with everyone, but we want to be able to speak our languages. We want to create our own systems. And we want to come into these meetings being a complete person. If I am a Mogikoyo woman, I want to come in there as a Mogikoyo woman. I don't want to come in there as a version of the British. I want to come as me. I want an Indian person to come in as an Indian person. So that's all we're doing. And so I will now welcome our guests. We will start with Mwalimu, Dr. Utheri Kanayo. Mwalimu is a Swahili term that is used very commonly with many of our freedom fighters, heroes. It simply means teacher. And it's also a word of respect. So when you know a person is a teacher in the community, wherever, and you call them Mwalimu first, that's a word of honor. So I will welcome Mwalimu Dr. Utheri Kanayo first, and then we will let David Coleman come second. So please introduce yourself. Tell us where you've been. Tell us your motivation and what you want to specifically focus under with this topic of education and investing in it from a cultural perspective. And then, then we will let David go after. Karibu sana, Daktari.
Thank you, Mary, for even having this platform where we have an opportunity to talk what we're passionate about, which is bringing Africa back to Africans. And personally, for me, even bringing Africa back to the classroom. I'm a teacher, I'm an educationist, I'm based in Kenya, and my husband and I have founded an Afrocentric school or Africa-centered school where we have institutionalized African culture. So it's not a one-off cultural day that I see not only in international schools, but in even our own local schools. We do not put emphasis on African culture, narratives, contributions to the world because of the colonial influenced education that we have received. I was saying earlier, even the way I speak English, you can tell, and a lot of Africans as well, you can tell the kind of education that we receive in Africa. One that first teaches you the foreign language to excellence before your very own. And then you have to do damage control to learn your own mother tongue. If it can also be in reverse, the people who know their mother tongue and don't know English well are not seen as accomplished or as successful as somebody who speaks English as fluently, perhaps as I do. So I lived in the UK for 8 years. I went there to do my PhD. I was at Cambridge. I did my PhD there. Then I was also an academic. I became an educational researcher. I had wonderful colleagues, I had wonderful colleagues, my supervisors, my other researchers were amazing. They're English and they embraced me. And I believe that was a path I had to pass through for exposure. And as Mary said, when you live outside, you get more Africa-centered. You meet people who are so sure of themselves, who are not thinking twice, second-guessing themselves as you are, because you're doing it because you're not yourself. You're not your authentic self. You have been trained to be somebody else, to fit in somebody else's culture and world, to speak somebody else's language. And then now you're in the presence of others who have never known anything but themselves, have never known anything but their language, their culture, their identity. And they believe, because they're living in a comfortable economy, that theirs is the best. Now, the African is finding themselves in a place where you cannot be who you have been taught to be, who you have been pushed to be. Then when you look back, you cannot really be where you come from because you have no knowledge of where you come from. Who are my people? Who is my language? Who is even my forefathers? Who are my ancestors? What is our contribution to the world? You are lost. You are lost. And so I saw it very clearly just from my own personal journey, but more so when we started giving back. We started giving back from when we were in the UK, giving scholarships to children in Africa, especially in Kenya. And then we ended up quitting our jobs and following our heart to say, you know what really makes us tick is helping children, disadvantaged children in Africa. Let's go back to Kenya. Let's grow this scholarship program. At the time, this is now in 2013. At the time, we had around 11, 12, 13 students that we were supporting. And these students had been part of my research work. I had broken all research protocol because you're not supposed to get involved, emotionally involved or engaged. You're supposed to go the Western model of research. You go in, collect your data, get out. Do not bias, do not get involved like that. So I broke all research protocol, and I didn't even want to continue to be an academic. I wanted to come on the ground and see how I can improve the lives of children and better education. So we came back in 2014 to grow these 11 kids that we were helping build the scholarship fund, help more children. And as we were engaging with these children firsthand, it's the best thing we ever did if we wanted real change, talking to these kids, because we realized, first of all, that they didn't have in themselves ways of even constructing sentences that can tell you what they think, how they think. They're so used to others deciding for themselves. There's a way poverty messes up with you, let alone just not even knowing who you are. But there's a way poverty messes up with you that it becomes that whoever is feeding you, whoever is giving to you, should be the one to make a decision over your life. So first of all, we broke that. We told them, look, you're great. You are born great. You're descendants of kings and queens. It doesn't mean because I am paying it forward by paying your education, for your education, that I own you. I actually want out of you what you're feeling, the greatest that you can ever be. So that's how the journey started. And then we realized for this child, their self-efficacy is so low. To get it back, what do I need to tell this child? Remember, as we don't know anything, we have come back to give scholarships. So we said, what is it that we need to tell this child or do for this child that will give us the kind of child we want for Africa? A child who can talk, a child who knows what they like, a child who can change the world, a child who doesn't feel bad about them. All those things. And that's the first time we started designing. We didn't first check what others have done. We were now just thinking for ourselves. We are in this situation. What can we do? And we said, we're going to design something that when we tell these children, they're going to get themselves back and they're going to love to be Africans. And that's how we got into Africa-centered education. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I think as we talk about the business of education, mine is to bring out the crucial importance of adding Africa-centeredness into the education of our children and even into their everyday learning, not a one-off. Let's not follow colonial influenced models. And then once a term or once a year, if we are lucky, we remember, oh, let's dress in our cultural clothes, let's speak our cultural languages. No, we want to institutionalize it, and we want it to be part and parcel of our education. So I'll stop there now and maybe give David a chance to introduce himself. Unless Mary, you'd want me to go on with maybe anything else, I think I can hand over now.
Thank you so much. I would have been happy to continue listening to you. I think it's very interesting to have a person who's actually done it, because many times we have conversations about repairing Africa or changing Africa, but usually it comes from a very theoretical point of view. So this is why I needed for you to lay the foundation of what we are doing here, because you haven't just done the theoretical part. You have also done the practical part, and you have been the initiator. So you didn't go into this wanting for or expecting for people to come and actually do the real work, the difficult work. You actually went to your own community. So this is very important for people to also see, because this white saviorism where we have, it's always someone from somewhere else coming in to tell us, do this. So this is why it's important for people to see a person from the community coming back to the community and changing it. So thank you so much, Dr. Utheri. And so now we have David Coleman. So please introduce yourself, your motivations, where you've been, what you do, and what you want to really focus on with this conversation about education and cultural investments. Karibu sana, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Wow, I'm already inspired. Thank you for having me, Mary. Thank you for this opportunity. Um, I'm a bit of an outlier here because I'm not I'm not formally from the education industry or sector, but it is something that I'm very passionate about, and I'll explain why as we go along. The First of all, I wanted to say, I'm really enjoying the fact that people are giving a lot of feedback, in the sense that, I'm seeing all the emojis come up, and it's showing that people are not just watching, but they're actually appreciating what they're hearing, and they're giving that kind of motivation is really important. And I love to see that when we're talking about important issues, that people are passionate about it, right? So they want to show that emotion. So thank you for that. It's encouragement, and it's encouraging to see. Um, yeah, as I said, my name is David Coleman. I'm actually a business transformation consultant. So the question is, why is a business transformation consultant on a panel for education? And I think it's because I'm at the other end of the spectrum, right? There's a reason why we educate our children. We educate them so that they can function in the real world. And so I'm seeing the ways in which um, I get to see firsthand and close up how our education system is probably failing us, right? So let me give you a little bit of background. I grew up, I was born in Ghana. I'm a Ghanaian. I live in Ghana. I'm sitting in Ghana right now. But early on in my life, I moved to the Netherlands. I studied there. I was lucky enough to go to a private school, a well, respected private school. I come from a relatively privileged background, so I got to see maybe what a lot of people don't get to see, and I got to mingle with the kind of people that the doctor and Mary are talking about, who have that sense of pride and that sense of ownership. Maybe a little differently, I got to see a bit of, how do I put it, a more international environment because I went to an international school. I was also, I can't talk about this without mentioning my mother, who's deeply African, very, very highly educated, a member of parliament, back in Ghana, an ambassador, which is why we were in the Netherlands, but still extremely traditional and very, very passionate about our continent, about our culture. So people ask me, you grew up abroad, why are you so passionate about Africa? And if I had to point at one thing, it would be my mother, because it was wherever we lived, our culture was very much embedded in what's in everything that we did and the way that we saw ourselves. And so parents have a very huge role to play. I also studied in the UK. So like Mary was saying, there's that exposure, and that exposure is really important. It's it's helpful, right? Because you don't want to only have one story. And even when you're home, when you stay home, which is also fine, um, you still maybe lack a complete version of the story that you're seeing, because Europe is not Hollywood. Europe is not uh, being abroad is not Wall Street. It's none of the fancy things that we see, right? There's definitely a bright side to it, but there's also a dark side. And we we kind of see our challenges as so overwhelming that we we overemphasize and inflate um, what seems to be a brighter world, a different world. So yeah, one so moving on. One of the things I I'm going to touch on a couple of things, but it's all headed somewhere. One of the things that I notice in living in on the continent, because I live here now for the last 20 years. I'm back and forth, but I'm mostly here. Is, we all know that when people talk about the challenges that the continent has, without fail, somebody, or if the whole conversation is not molded around, somebody will bring up leadership, right? That our leaders should be doing the right thing. Our leaders are failing us, and it's true, they are. But the reality is, those leaders, they started somewhere. And if you want to solve a problem, you have to go back to the root. And I was in a session recently with a bunch of young people, and they were so passionate. We had a great conversation, and and they asked me, how do we deal with this thing of leadership? And I was like, we literally have to wait it out. But we literally have to wait for a generation of people who are who have better values, right? But those values, so we need to invest now in a youth and a group of in educating the right people and creating the right values. Education is one thing, values and principles are a different set that is also critical, right? And if people grow up with that together, because you can have a good person, but a good person who grows up in a around in a context where there's undue pressure, there's peer pressure to do the wrong thing, where they're constantly hungry and they can only think about what their next meal. That person is going to grow up to be like their environment, regardless of where they start, and it's not necessarily their fault. So I don't really have I don't put the pressure on leadership, and so I'm just trying to build this idea that the we are we see our problem as a today problem. Our problem is not a today problem. Uh, today we can't really change the way the world is right now, but we can prepare and ensure that tomorrow and the future will be better, right? And that is one of the lessons that I think we can learn from all other cultures that are more confident in themselves than us. They invested years, decades, centuries ago in ensuring that they would have a situation today. And if we're not in the situation that we want to be in today, we have to um, we have to invest today in the future that we want. And that is basically what we're here to do, to talk about that future that we want to create. And once we have a community that has values, that has standards, that will out of that community will come exceptional leaders, without doubt, because we have such a high yield of high quality leadership, right? So, and one of the things that I like to always in my conversations, I'm always trying to make it about us, and there's us and them, right? And I grew up abroad and everything. I'm very much concerned with us. I try to make our conversations about us, because it, other people have taken care of themselves. They didn't, they were not worried. They did not compare themselves to us when they were developing. They did it for themselves and about themselves. And I think we need to do more of that, because the more we know the problems that there are. And another thing that is really important to remember is that I got this, there's this quote that we need reminding more than we need teaching, and that runs through your whole life. The reality is, new information is easy to get. You can get new information, but we've all been in that situation where somebody comes up with something so obvious, like you knew it, or somebody gives you advice and you knew it, like, but you've just forgotten. And it happens in the workplace, it happens everywhere. People need reminding. We need reminding of the basics. The basics and the fundamentals are what we forget these things. And so anyway, that's my prelude. I hope my time is not up, because there's actually a bigger topic that I want to address. And that is that we all know that Africa is the youngest continent, yet has the most outdated learning systems, because first of all, they were inherited and they were not updated. So we are operating most of the time in an outdated with an outdated education system. So European American education system from 20, 30, 40 years ago, but and trying to catch up using that, it doesn't really work. And we have idolized, and the world, not us alone, the world has idolized technology. And there's nothing wrong with technology. Technology is an enabler, but we have let go of, in business, what we call your unique, your advantage, right? We are builders. We are naturally creative. Now, in our past, and I'm going to go all the way back, right, to our olden days culture, when we lived in communal environments, teaching was practical. Teaching was not something like you didn't sit around. You didn't learn how to how to um, to catch a rabbit, or to kill a deer, or to build a structure from a conversation that you had sitting somewhere. That knowledge was passed on by doing. You followed someone who knew how to do it. You need, and we are, am I taking up too much time?
No, I'm saying apprenticeship.
Apprenticeship. Yeah, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Thank you. So, and we in our culture right now, you have to remember that, I mean, I have clients, I have very clients who are doing very well for this market, right? And one of them, for instance, and they're all similar in a certain way. One of them is a bridal company, so basically the bridal wear company. So they make very, very, very expensive wedding dresses of $6,000 plus. And the other one is a self, like they do hair, nails. It's like a full body care kind of center. And both of these places, let me just keep it with these two examples. They have somebody who's very smart at the top, but the rest of the 100 and something people who they employ, these people they need practical skills. They need to be executors. They need to have high standards. And so we actually, in our market, have we have a lot of thinkers, but we don't have a lot, or not that thinking is wrong, but we have a lot of people who just want to innovate. Everybody wants to come up with a new thing, right? But we have not even mastered doing the old things. We have not even mastered the fundamentals. And we have to start thinking, what do we need? How do we learn? How do we pass on information? And forget about Europe, forget about America, forget about everywhere else. The science is clear. When you have a mentor, when you have a person who can show you how to do something, and you are able to first of all watch it being done, then you can practice with guidance, and then execute on your own with observation. That is by far, and I mean by far, the most effective way of learning, period, point blank. And that is what we were already doing. Nobody told us that was the smart thing to do, that the conversations don't solve problems, but we were already doing it, because that's how we were able to to survive and to thrive on our continent, right? So it is not that we are inventing anything new. We are going back to our source, and our source was clear. Somebody needs to teach you, somebody needs to show you, and then you need to try. They need to tell you if you're doing well. And once you've done all of that, now you might come up with something new to make things a little bit better for the next person. And oh, I missed out a part. Once you've done it well, now you have to teach it to the, do you know the only time learning is only complete, it is only ever complete and fully internalized when you are able to teach someone else.
Yes.
If you can only absorb information, you are not knowledgeable. If you can only parrot systems and processes, you are not knowledgeable. It is when you can pass on that information with clarity, by example, that is when that information actually resides within you. So I'm very that I've observed this from the other extreme, right? Of the outcome of education, and seeing what is happening at that end of the spectrum. I have a strong opinion about what needs to happen at the very, very beginning. And that's why I'm here, because I believe that if we were to reintroduce apprenticeships as, and I'm talking, I'm sure it wouldn't want to go that far back, but honestly, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't mind if it starts from the age of 4, 5. You know, so yeah, let me leave it there because I could go on for hours, and we don't have that much time.
I have all the time in the world, and I think we're gonna be here for a while. So I think, I mean, I have a lot of time. I know David has time, but Dr.
Yeah.
will have to warn us because once we start discussing these things, and I want people to be able to see this later. So this is something that I want people to look back and say, you know what, there was a moment here. There was a moment here and there was a moment here. And this is something that we need to remember. I want us to talk about things that when we look back 5 years from now, we can point and say, you know what, that was it. That was it. Are we doing it? Are we doing it? So I will now start asking questions.
If there were any questions, I'm sure the doctor is also more than happy to about the things that we said, because maybe there are questions.
Yeah. And so, yeah, David, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for laying the foundation. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say about apprenticeship as well. And you know, this is something we don't really talk about that, honestly. But I'm sure you're going to have something to say. So the first thing I want us to focus is the impact of culture and inclusion, because we are a very diverse continent. In one country alone, we have multiple communities. In Kenya, we have over 40. I mean, it's the same thing in most other countries. So I want us to first focus on the impact of culture and inclusion. And because my work is diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-oppression, I need to focus on how we can make sure that everyone is included. So I will ask you, Dr. Utheri, first. Considering the business of education, within this framework of being African and, you know, decoloniality, I want to know from you how we can structure investment strategies to actively prioritize the integration of indigenous knowledge systems and cultural preservation, and move beyond the simple adoption of a Western education model. How can we be able to do that, considering that we have this diversity, right? How do we do this?
Okay. First of all, we need to come up with decolonial strategies. Everything we do, you can see that the people doing the work, whatever, we've all gone through a colonial strategy on us. Okay? I think when I was introducing myself, I forgot to say that after we started mentoring the children, remember to know who they are and to build their self-efficacy, That led to starting a school so that we can implement the Africa-centeredness. And that school now, it's called Freedom International Schools Africa, is not only an Africa-centered school, it's also an IB World School. I remember that when David was talking about his international school background. And for me, it doesn't matter what kind of background or curriculum you're having. What now matters is, I believe, is you inject it with Africa-centeredness. That's all. Have a department there, or whatever. So, first of all, so to answer Mary's question, we have to have a decolonial strategy. A decolonial strategy can only come in from people who are aware of the damage that has been done to us, and then we are doing damage back to the continent, because you give out who you are. Okay, so the more that we are neither hot or cold, you're neither African or European. Who are you? You're thinking you're Africa, you're European, but no, Europeans don't even want you anymore. Even you've seen what is happening in one particular country. Let me not mention, just as much as just yesterday, just new directives every day. This community, we're no longer going to give them permission to stay here. This community, and these are Afro descendants that are being affected. Okay, so you might have at one point thought you're them, and even you say I'm a European, maybe I'm an American, I'm an Asian, you know, but then they're telling you you're not, and we're going to take you back to your home, which maybe you have not been for so many years. So if you are like myself, who you have to keep doing decolonizing of the mind or damage control, that's one of the key things that must be done. Okay, so we invest in decolonial strategies. One of the ways to do it is to prioritize our cultural capital, our culture. When you talk about our culture, what is it? I mean, I remember us being taught, I think, Mary, when you were introducing yourself, you're talking about, we were taught about these cultures, being a Gikoyo, being Luo, the Mwomboko, the kind of hats, but it was very superficial. We were not really taught the essence of our cultures. So when we talk about culture, even we don't know what we are talking about. Culture is not just even dressing in some African print. I could dress like this. A lot of people dress like this, but when they open their mouth, they're very colonized. And you can even be called Kwame or give another one, Shaka Zulu, but your mind is not Afrocentric at all. So sometimes it's not really about the naming, it's understanding the depth. So we have to go back to our cultures. What are the roots? Where did your community come from? What were their beliefs? Who are their gods? What was their livelihood? Start getting deep into that, understanding your people yourself. Now, remember, you're understanding your people in a very different context. We are in a very, can I say, modern or global world. So do not be pushed to that understanding means overnight transformation. I think understanding your roots gives you identity. That affirmation of, wow, this is who I am. This is where I come from. I'm great. But you know what? With my greatness now, with my understanding of self and my love of self, I can engage with others. I can do so much more with others, but no longer them telling me, how should I talk? Where is my place? Where should I go? You are now engaging in a form of dignity and with pride because you know who you are. Another thing that we need to remember, we are doing a decolonizing strategy. So we have gone back to our cultural capital, our roots. What Marcus Garvey says are people without knowledge of their roots, knowledge of who they are, their culture, is like a tree without roots. Basically, you're a useless, most dead tree. There's nothing you're going to do. So as we're getting into a cultural capital, is community knowledge. Now, community knowledge is not just necessarily the histories, those deep ones. We can also broaden like that. What is my community now like? What is that? What does it mean to be in Nairobi today? What does it mean to be in Moranga, to be, you know, what does it mean to be in Accra at this present moment? You know, you're becoming aware of the ups and downs of your community and the world. How or why did we become like this? How is Lagos like this? How are our markets like this? You will learn how other trade treaties and what can I say, agreements that have been done with people who don't even look like you, who don't belong to you, are affecting your community. Remember, now you're decolonizing. You've gone back to your histories. You've gone deep. Now you're going wide. You're going at the community level to really understand, why are we where we are? I was reading a very interesting post. I can only remember her first name. I think she's called Christine. I'll share it later. She's a Kenyan. And her post was about Africa giving out more finances to the world than the world give finance back. And somebody said, Africa is not in a position to give anyone money, the kind of money that you're talking about. What Africa is lacking is to add value to her resources. They are saying the same thing. This one, what you meant was, for what Africa is giving out, which is in terms of resources, and Africa is not giving anyone any loan. So that guy was kind of right, not giving anyone any liquid cash. But for the resources that we are giving the world, the raw materials that we are giving the world, she was saying it is coming to $587 billion per year. We are receiving 208 billion. So you give out your raw materials, they come back processed and packaged and 3 times more expensive. Have you understood do you have community knowledge? Do you have capital, cultural capital, to be able to ask yourself why? Do you know we are just reactionists? Life is hard for us, so you wake up, you go out there, you hustle, you're trying to feed your stomach, you're trying to survive. You don't have time. It is the cycle of all this, let me call it poverty, because it's a form of poverty, where you don't even have time, where you are full and rested and at peace to start thinking. At the moment, your thoughts are just to act. So a decolonial mindset deals with all these things. Why are we not dealing with our problems? Because we are always hungry. And I don't just mean hungry for stomach. We're always hungry to fulfill ourselves, hungry. We're just never at peace. Okay? Another thing, what will now follow with this investment in cultural cultural additions to our own curriculums, is what will happen is a long-term transformation. It's not tomorrow, but the fruits. I remember David talking about, let's start even at 4 years old. The fruits will be felt when this 3-4 year old is even 7 years old. Their mind, by the time they are 14, their mind at 2020, they are at 30. Their mind will be so, so woke in how things run for Africa. What is it that is affecting Africa? Remember, it's just started by telling them the truth, their roots, that you are not of poverty. The richest man who ever lived, Mansa Musa, up to date, even it's only the other day that Elon Musk, I think, is purported to be paid 1 trillion. If Mansa Musa was alive, he's been dead 700 years, thereabouts. And at that time, he was worth, I don't know how, was it $100 billion? It was unfathomable. I read a book, and it's written by some European, and they were describing his wealth as unfathomable. There was no middleman to tell him, Mansa Musa, let me process your salt for you. Let me process your gold for you. This timber, no. He was the owner of his resources, and he sold it at top price to the world, so he got his wealth. Okay? So there's a big hole in Africa, big gap. Why is it us who are the owners of the resources? How can you think about yourself right now? You have planted, I don't know, kale, sukuma wiki in your garden, but you're hungry. But you have sukuma wiki in your garden, and it's yours, you planted it, but you're hungry because somebody else is coming, doing the harvesting, taking it away, Maybe we'll bring you back packaged, I don't know, sukuma wiki what, and you cannot afford it. But remember, the sukuma wiki is in your garden. Doesn't it? Does it make sense? So you can see how I'm talking, the examples I'm giving. If you were to teach to children, just like this, straight up, there's a difference between just writing in books. Books help to guide us, but being in front of children and orally teaching them, just being a teacher, engaging, having a discussion with all this dynamics. Ask them, how can you be the one with sukuma wiki in your garden, but you're hungry? What? There's something wrong. They will tell you, oh, this one is a thief, or this one is trying to do this. Then now, with that small example, you bring it to the world scale, like, this is what is happening. What about the World Trade Organization? What are the agreements and the treaties that are making us, who are the owners and givers of resources, the ones who are poor? It doesn't make sense. So that kind of a thing. So let me stop there. And
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I also wanted to talk about time. I only have until that 6:30, only because I have small children.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right, good to know.
but the conversation can continue. That's
okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to add something to that, but we don't have so much time. So I think
do add.
Thank you so much, because every time you gave a point, I saw myself, even though I'm not in the classroom, I saw myself doing it, and I saw the children in the classroom doing it. So everyone can do it. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're decolonizing, and if you're broadening whatever we are learning into the community, you can do it from anywhere. So thank you so much, Dr. Utheri. And now I want to ask a question to David. So David, how can the success of an investment be measured beyond the conventional metrics, such as financial profit and standardized with test results? How can we specifically have measurable achievements that demonstrate cultural empowerment? How are we going to do these measurements? Thank you.
Wow. You have some really good questions there. But I'm a disruptive guest to have on your show. So I really think that the question that you asked, Dr. Utheri, is an important one. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just touch on that a little bit, and then we'll go on to the. So you're gonna have to remind me. I just want to add something, because it's an important one, and it's the way I want to look at it is a frame that I think that I use when working with my customers, with my clients, and everything, and that is that is I always challenge the question, and I always challenge the assumptions that come with the question. Let me explain. The question was around how do we get people to how do we finance our education system, right? How do we get people to invest? How do we secure that? And I think that there's a problem before that. There's a problem before that, and that problem is really that we need to reframe the problem. First of all, when we talk about our biggest challenges, like I said in my introduction, we talk about leaders. But if every time we talked about the problem that we face, we talked about education, it would be very, very different, right? Because when we talk about leaders, these are finished people. They're grown. They're not. They're not going to change. I know they're not going to change. Whatever they've been doing, all we can do is lament. Oh, I wish they were better. I wish they cared more. We have no control over them, right? They are fully formed people. They have their what works for them. But when we start talking about our problems, we talk about it from, we have an education problem. Now we have to take responsibility, because then it becomes much more vital that we focus on that. And the things that you focus on are the things that you spend money on. You don't. If I told you that for me, the biggest problem in the world are bees, and I wish you'd give me $100 a month to to solve that problem, you begin like, I don't care about bees. I don't think bees are really the problem. Maybe they are actually. I don't know. But the point is, it is what we value that money goes to where we think it is going to ultimately help us, right? So we need to change the conversation and make it not about people who are never going to change, who have uh, fully formed opinions and ways of thinking, and we need to make it about people who we can change, little people, children who have um so first of all, we need to make it important. And then second of all, one of I don't usually, like I said, mention other people, but there's an example here that is so important to me. I think the idea of the American dream is genius. It's genius because it gives Americans this idea that I can be anything that I want. And we need our version of that. We need this idea that what we imagine can become reality. We are very locked into this idea that what we have is this is how I was born, this is probably how I'm going to die. We are surprised when we go back to our countries and we see new buildings, like, oh wow, we don't expect progress. We're almost surprised by it, like, whoa, what happened here? you know and that should be wrong. We should be expectant of that. And when we focus on something that we can change, and we have high expectations, now our money will flow to the things that matter, and we will expect the money to have impact that drives change. We don't communicate I think the education industry, and this is the crux of my point, because I'm probably taking too long on this, right? Is that education right now focuses on the children. And don't get me wrong, education is for the children. But do you know who's also important? The parents and the what's it called, and the teachers. You in your introduction said, oh, it's a term of endearment, a term of, but do we really respect teachers? I don't think so. I'm sorry. I don't think we give them the respect that they deserve. And I don't think that, and I'm not trying to be offensive to them, but I don't think our teachers are involving the parents enough, because the parents are the ones who have money. The parents are the ones. More than 60% of a child's development is more dependent on what happens in their home than what happens in the school. Even though they spend a lot of time, their waking hours there, because of the importance of their parents and in their lives, and the value that they know how important their parents are. So what they see their parents do, and what their parents, how closely involved their parents are, is so important to how they value education, the way that the things that they spend time on, and the amount of energy that they put into it. So we also need to reimagine what. And I'm a very I'm a very much, we say that we want to be purely African. So why can't we? Why? I wish we could just dismantle the whole thing. Imagine a child goes to a school in a rural area, yeah, and every single week they go to one of the farms of one of the parents, a different farm every week. They spend one day on that farm, being taught by the parents how they farm that land. I'm going back to my apprenticeship thing, right? And that is, to me, so valuable. You know why? I did a project where the kids, I worked on the Ghana school feeding project. And in these very rural areas where there's a lot of poverty and malnutrition, the kids were not being fed by the parents, because the parents are like, you're even lucky that you're guaranteed a meal at school. We're not even guaranteed a meal. Do you understand? Because there's a separation of school and home. And there was never that separation before. We need to bring these two places back. If that parent was to see their child on their farm, and that lets them know this child is going to be useful to me one day. They're not just going to go off to university and become, yes, that can happen too, if that is the best thing for my family, but they will always also be useful to me right here where we live, the things that matter to us. And anyway, I'm going too deep into it, but like, why can't we reimagine it from scratch? We're trying to stand on land and dip our toe into our culture, right? And we think we're making progress, but honestly, if we are not dramatic about this, we can change, and it will change, but it can change. It can take us 50 or 100 years, because we keep dipping a little bit more of our toe, and then maybe our ankle, or we can just deep dive. And I just wish we would deep dive, because you know what? I don't care if we crash and everything messes up. I'd rather that if we crash, we will repair faster than if we were to just tiptoe, because we don't want to offend people, or we don't, so anyway, that's my very dramatic, as always, approach of like, do we even value it enough to give this sector money? Has it proven itself that it understands how to deliver value, and who its real customers are? The customers aren't just the kids, they're the parents as well, and the main actors are the teachers, and those two are really, really not well positioned in our heads in terms of the value that they deliver.
Thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I think in your own way, you kind of moved us away from, because we wanted to know how can we measure the investments and the impact of what we put into it, aside from the standardized examinations and everything. So I think in your own way, you have said that it cannot be the same thing about sending people to college and they're doing other things there. It's about how they are, what kind of use, how we are using the spaces we are in, and how we develop them, after all the education we are getting. So how are we beneficial to our own communities? So that would be one way of, measuring that. So thank you so much. Now I want to hear from Dr. Utheri. And now I'm moving to the power of sustainable investment. I would like to know from you, Dr. Utheri. Many investments prioritize quick returns and scalability. It's just business. It's always about scalability. So I want to know about your own school. What emergent models do you have? Which ones are you employing in your school that focus on long-term growth? And this long-term growth should prioritize ethics, economics, and sustainable development. So what are you doing to achieve this, Dr. Utheri?
First of all, there is no quick return of investment or no overtime change with education. That's why it's very difficult to get proper funding for an education program which is not maybe about products. Give children shoes, so that you go and say, I gave 1 million shoes, give children pens and pencils. So we've all known those things are helpful. I have my friend, Waweru, is running Food for Education, which is doing amazing things, feeding children. Those kind of programs where it's something tangible, gets more support and attention. Now, if you're doing the colonial work and you're working on people's minds, and then hopefully to see the behavior and the change, it takes time. The child will possibly even get a turnaround more than the parent. And the child is going home to the parent. So maybe in school, you teach the children something really powerful. Let's even say something about naming yourself. Why is it important to use our African names vis-a-vis European names? Okay, so we discussed that and everything. So let's say the child is called, I don't know, Jane, Jane Jerry, Jane Atieno. So you're telling her your Atieno is your authentic name. We are the only, mostly, more or less, if you look at it's the African who's always naming themselves a foreign name, whatnot. But immediately the child steps back into the other world, they become Jane again. In school, they are Atieno. So it's like, just that back and forth will even delay the kind of impact that you are going to have. So I think when it comes to maybe return of investment or impact on education, it depends on what you're looking at. If you're looking at the material stuff, it's easy to get. If you're looking at more of behavioral changes, mind shifts, change of self-efficacy, to measure those would need more understanding, more skill. I personally, right now we've started talks with a team of evaluators because we want to evaluate our work in not more that Dr. Utheri says it's wonderful, but more of a scientific way, something that you can share with the world and say, this is significant. This has been proven. And if you teach children to know who they are, if you take an Afrocentric model, this is what you're going to get. So that kind of a thing. In terms of Freedom School, because ours just started out of that passion, and I can see even David has it, you also have it, that passion for change. That one of enough is enough. This is not working. I'm gonna die and leave my children here still having the same conversations that we were having. This same conversation was had in the 70s. It was had in the 40s. Now we're having it in 2025, really. And then we're gonna keep saying Africa can, Africa should. No. I said we're gonna be talking about Africa doing. Okay. And so for first of all, for sustainability, let's start doing. We write, we talk, we're very good at, what is it called? Keyboard warriors, right? Very good. But what are you doing? Even from your own home, your own kids. You don't have to come to Freedom School to get an Afrocentric education. You can start small, start with what you've got, where you're at. So secondly, for scalability is what like we are doing. You have to understand your own impact. You have to evaluate yourself. Okay. Luckily, and maybe it's come again, nothing you've done before goes to waste. I was a researcher and an academic, being able to gather some of very highly skilled international evaluators. Say, look, Freedom School has been running for 8 years. What is it that we are doing? How can we gauge the impact in a way that if you tell the world this works, what is your proof? And then I think from that is to pilot what you're doing and then to scale it up. All I can say is, without a shadow of a doubt, I know that as long as we don't teach children identity, you can teach them technology all you want. They can be multilingual all you want. But if you don't teach them the heart of identity, the truth of who they are, and how wonderful it is to be an African, how great it is, with facts, not just English. This is why you're great. In fact, you don't even have to tell them you're great. Give them the facts. Tell them what their forefathers did. Tell them life started here. That's why we're called the motherland. That every old fossil is traced back to here. The mitochondrial Eve, the DNA that has given life to the human being is traced back to a black hole. Just tell them those things. Then tell them discuss. The children will come back with answers and tell you, oh my God, we are the ones who started life. We have all the resources on this continent, blah, blah, blah. All that will come through. As long as we are not doing that, teaching children their identity and how crucial they have been to the foundations of the world, we'll always be here talking. Our kids, give yourself another 30 years. They'll be the ones on this panel, will be long dead, and they'll be here talking about, tell me about scalability. and tell me about the investment of education, what it should be like. So I think it's very important that people like us who are doing trumpet, we have to speak loud and clear, shout that I think we have identified what could be a crucial solution to what fails Africa. And for me, it's identity. Then someone else is going to come with something else. For somebody else, it's really history or whatever. But you know that history still comes down to identity. Somebody else is technology. Why do you want Africans to really learn technology? Okay, to be at the forefront of whatever is happening in the world. We are the youngest continent. Do you know by 2080, out of every 2 kids, 1 is African? How are you preparing our human capital? Are you preparing the minds for when Africans are the majority on earth? Like 1 in every 2 kids. In just, when is 2080? I think I'll still be alive. God help me. Are we talking about even 60 years to come? 1 in every 2 kids. And how are we investing in the human capital of the majority of the world? Yeah. Will you just be there still thinking you're not good enough? You need a white savior, blah, blah, blah. Will you still be doing that? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really listen. I could listen to you all day. And because of that, and I know because, you don't have so much time, you have 10 more minutes with us. I want to ask you more questions. So 2 questions. Okay. And then I also want you to conclude before you leave by letting us know how you want us to be involved in what you're doing. So first, the 2 questions, and then finish with what you need from us. So this is going to be about practicality, management, and implementation. I want to know from a management point of view, the primary operational challenges that are involved in converting general educational investments, the vision into something that is more concrete, more localized, and that is sensitive to the specific cultural and resource context on the ground. So the challenges, moving that vision into something that's, something tangible from a cultural perspective. And then I also want to know, as you are expanding into African markets, because I know you're gonna, this is not your final stop. You're moving. I also want to know how you will effectively create a balance of efficiency to have a centralized management strategy, right? Because you need that with everything. And what's going to be relevant when you're doing this, and how you're going to localize your curriculum. So we just want to know the practicalities, a bit more about that, the challenges, implementation, how you're going to move further. And then after you answer that, just let us know how you want us to be involved in what you're doing, what you need from us as just ordinary citizens, as parents, as potential investors. Dr. Utheri, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So to really move up from where we are, because we've been running an Afrocentric school. We're going to be finishing 8 years. We've been able to keep it up mostly through investing back. We have a fee payment model where 80% of our students pay fees, 20% are on food scholarships, like really disadvantaged children. If we had enough money, really, this school would just be filling those, because that's where my heart is. I always feel so responsible to help the one who, if you don't help, what will happen to them? That I could go on and on about that, but that's another story for another day. So first of all, it will take, so we have proof of concept that it works. We've been running a successful school. We are award-winning for 8 years. Take it to the next level is money, because the minds are there, the vision is there. We know, I mean, if we were to be given another campus, we would know what to do. We have been doing it, so it's just to transfer what we're doing here to the next level. Okay, so whether it's in Kenya, whether it's outside, more issue for us is finances, not not really how do the programs run. Because then to run the program is just to add more people, train them in the essence of what you're doing, and they'll be able to run it. Put the right people in line with your vision to run it. The other thing is about how can we still keep the culture. I don't think you can go into community or any country and you're Afrocentric and you're telling them what to do with their culture. So every curriculum must be able to embed the culture of the area. So it's not like how we had to learn everything, whether you were in, I don't know, north of Kenya, south of Kenya, east of Kenya, we were learning. I think there's a part for general knowledge, but there's really cultural specific. So for us, like now we are we are following the IB curriculum. We are an IB World School, and the IB gives you a framework, but it's the most international curriculum. It doesn't belong to any country. So if I, for example, was to take the curriculum of country, I don't know, E, let me see. Country E, which we all know what it is, country E, we take their curriculum. I'm teaching everything about country E. I'll teach the cultures, the histories of their kings and queens, of their enemies and friends, you know, because I have now taken that curriculum and that's what I'm teaching in my school. It belongs to a country. Whatever that child is learning in country E is what will be taught in a country, in Kenya, in Ghana, like that. And that's how we mix our children. You're neither African, you're not European. Who are you? What? I don't know. What are you? What are you? And yet the child there is only learning about country E, for essence, speaking country E's language, you know. But here the African is just mixed. You're mixed. So IB teaches with a framework. Even where we fitted so well with the IB, it's already we were thinking of framework. We had already brought Africa into the classroom without it being in the curriculum. So we were creating our own structures. So if we can do the same in other countries where it's more of a framework, where you go out and wherever you are, you can allow them to bring in their stories, then we are good. There's always been this fear, I don't know, lie. It's a colonial lie which we have bought. Even now, us who are now colonized in the mind, we still propagate it, that how Africa is full of so many languages, so many ways. How would you ever teach them to be united, to be one? But the beauty is when you know yourself, you know who you are, it is very easy for you to engage with others. And you don't engage with others expecting to change them to be you. That is colonizing. That is servant, to making people your slave. You are thinking, so you're from country E, I'm from country B, you're from country A. Oh, wow, A does like this, E does like this, like that. We share, we are the same, like that. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who was our mentor, used to give a very simple example. A book is written in English. It's translated to other mother tongues for people to understand. It does not stop being printed in English. It doesn't change the concept or the story, but it reaches other people. It doesn't cause war. It actually causes understanding when now more languages are involved to reach that person who has to read it in Spanish, read it in Kiswahili, read it in Gikuyu, you know, but the book was written in English. And that is when he said, enough is enough. I am going to write in Kikuyu, which is my mother tongue. That is my English. And I'll have my books then translated to whoever else cares to have them. So why is it different when Africans are trying to learn in their own language and ways? Why is it a threat? What is causing all this fear? Is our enlightenment going to cause problems elsewhere, then of what use is it when we say, oh, we're under the United Nations, or we need to have a FISA code, I don't know what, and yet the world is so skewed to keep the African down. And I want to end with this. You must bear in mind, in fact, sorry, it's not 2100, which is 80 years from now. Now I see where I was confusing. In 2100, which is 80 years from now, 1 in 2 children will be an African. Forget all other races, if I can use that word. Okay. As we speak right now, 75% of Africa is 30 years and below. We are the capital of the now and the future. That capital, what mind will they have? Because if you have a mind that is colonized, we are finished. We will be giving service. We will be giving service. We will not be developing, will not be leading. Imagine, and you're the majority. So that speaks volumes in the kind of education that this continent needs to have, let alone Kenya or Freedom School. I'm past that. If you see on our socials, we are wanting to train teachers. And we are wanting to share what we have, what we know, with other teachers, other schools, for the single reason that Afrocentric learning cannot be held by just a few. It cannot be by the 200, 300 children in our school. It's for everyone. It's even for international schools, other schools with other cultures, so that they learn the truth about Africans. This thing of showing Africans with houseflies, I don't know what, that's not who we are. We are the center of the earth. Without us, there's no world. We, you know, if the truth is said, if the truth is shared, I'm telling you, even people, how they view Africans will change overnight, because they'll be like, what? These people, they are great. It's just that they're having a hard time. There's a face for every country, every civilization, but we're gonna come out of it. So going forward, maybe, because for us, our ask and needs is to scale up our work. I think we have been talking about it. When we have a GoFundMe for that, for those who want to do Thanksgiving, giving, even there's next week, I don't know, there's Giving Tuesday, all those things, we have a GoFundMe, we have fundraising. But more important, even to attract the right donor who can give well enough for us to have turn this magnanimous vision into life, that we can evaluate ourselves, package who we are in a teacher training guide, and then train others. Also, have this school have other campuses all over, because as you spread, you're like a light, you know. So in as much as other teachers are being trained, if they could be points of, I don't know, plugins, you know, other campuses, that could be done. But the dream is big, if I was beginning to talk big. But in a nutshell, those are the kind of support that we would need to anyone who is listening, or anyone who will watch this, the recorded version. Let me say that. And I just want to thank Mary for her courage to even host this. I always support. I just said, Mary, you don't have a big audience now, but it's not stopping you. I mean, the kind of conversation we are having here could easily be having an audience of thousands. People need to hear what you have to offer and what's on the table, but it's not stopping you. And let it not stop you. For whatever model you have chosen to use, you know the best why you are choosing the model that's not that might limit your participants. You could try both. You can play along. This time is like this one is like this. But I love your focus and your courage to bring the African narrative to the world. Your pages, everything, when you look at Crest Impact, anything, it's all fighting for a dignity for Africans, an acknowledgement for Africans. It's wonderful. So really, You are inspiring others, you're inspiring us, and keep going, keep at it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I was thinking, because this conversation is so deep, and I say, maybe give me 2 more minutes just to thank you.
Yes, it's okay.
I was just thinking, you know what? Do you have enough time to tell us what you need? Because this is one of the moments I've really been waiting for. Because you speak to a lot of people. We see your social media pages. We can find the schools. But it's very important to ask, what do you need from people? So I think the 2 things that I've gotten from you is that this is something that involves everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. Number 2, you spoke about training, and not just training people of African descent, but other people. And let me tell you why I respect that so much. My work, people forget that just because I'm talking about Pan-Africanism and African culture, they forget who are my clients. Now, you know who my clients are. My clients are not usually my people from Kenya. It's usually people from different communities. And this is what I love, that you brought this to the forefront. And you said, we do not just want to train African teachers, we want to train others as well. So I will ask you a question about that. But first, I also want to say that I think I think everyone has heard you very clearly that you are also looking for financial support, because to grow, as you said, you need that. Because you could be given a campus somewhere and you know what to do. So it's a good thing that you reminded us that. So you've shared the page there. Everyone, please check that. And I would remind people to just show their support in tangible ways. We can't just always talk. We need to do more. We need
if you can.
Yes, if we can. So one question about the training: is there anything more? Because you involve everyone. Is there anything else? Where can people find that information? Especially if they're from Europe or anywhere else. Do you have more information?
At the moment, no.
Okay.
I think it's in the early phases.
Okay.
So the school runs as a school. I mean, anyone who wants to be part of our school, we have a great boarding section like that. But for what we are calling it our legacy, because we said we want to leave a legacy where what we know works, we give it out. So right now we are still in the early phases, because we need to now evaluate ourselves and package it, because that's what's going to give us the teacher training guide.
Yes.
That's what's going to show this is the impact, and then we design a guide with even activities you can do with your kids. We design content. This is what you can tell to tell your kids, but this is how much more you can also find out yourself. So it becomes, you're giving content, but also you're giving a framework where even someone from Cote d'Ivoire, someone from Egypt will still be able to be guided on how to bring their culture and their Africa into the classroom. So let me just say we are in the early stages, and when we are ready, we'll blow the trumpet.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We're going to pilot with a few schools here around, a few teachers here around. We are very well networked where we are. And then when we are ready to share it out, or when there are trainings, depending on the kind of finances we got, we can even whether start just locally with the Kenyans, or we can also have teachers from all over Africa coming for this Afrocentric training, going back, to their countries and the like.
Okay. I love that. I love that. And everyone knows that we have international schools in Kenya, in Ghana, Nigeria, everywhere. So this is why it's important to understand that this is not just a conversation for people of African descent, because those other curriculums are usually from, we have British system, we have American system, and we need to make sure that those children, because the children in there are not just African, there are children from other places, but it's important to know that this is something we have to do together. When you're watering your plantation, when you're watering your farm, you don't just water one part and leave the other parts. You water everywhere. You make sure that there's water everywhere in the soil. So this is why it's important to know this. And also, let's remember, abroad, I long for a day where we have international schools abroad, outside Africa, where the concept is the same as what they've been doing, but in reverse. So you can be able to take a child to a school where they can also learn that, I can be African. We can focus on this.
Yes.
That is what I want to see. So that's where it's gonna go.
Yes.
Okay.
Just the way we've gone through European influenced, or for us, a British influenced curriculum. You can go through an African influence curriculum. We've gone through a British influence curriculum, and we are not British. We are not Europeans.
Yeah.
And then you can also go through an African influenced curriculum.
Yes.
You don't have to have come from Africa. You just have to have the heart of, or parents who want the children to have a global outlook,
Yes.
especially since Africa is the future.
Yes, exactly.
I'm loving how everyone is saying. If you look at if you listen to the tech guys, business guys from abroad, they're all talking about how Africa is the place to go. There's nothing left outside there. Now Africa is the place to go. So if Africa is the place to go, then even our education influence
Go there.
should be in all the schools of the world. If you're going to come and work in Africa, there's a kind of education and the kind of exposure that you already need to have. That you don't come here thinking you're coming to work with people who don't know.
Exactly.
Work with people who are lesser. No. You're coming to work with great minds who are the foundations of the earth.
Yes.
Let's even start from there. You understand? Like that.
And I hope we're gonna have this. I hope we're not just gonna focus on schools. I long for the day that if you know you're going to work in Nairobi, whether you're coming as a a tech investor or working in development, whatever, that you can be able to go through a process, an unlearning process, and then learning the correct way how to relate to, because this is already what I do. Yeah, like on a small.
That's so wonderful. That's exactly what you do. Even there's a friend of ours in Germany, Dr. Rahab Jerry. That's what she does in her university. Just that diversity, equality.
Yeah, we need to learn how. All of us need to understand that decolonization is not going to happen with just one person. It's going to be all of us combined. As long as we are living together or working together, it doesn't matter whether it's in Africa or somewhere else. So thank you so much, Dr. Utheri. Asante sana. We will remember all your lessons, and
thank you.
Now I need to let you go.
Thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the conversation.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.
Sana.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Now, David, I have some questions for you. I have 2 questions for you before I give questions to the audience. Are you ready for us?
I'm very ready for you.
Okay. So I also want to focus on the same topic. I want to talk about the power of sustainable investment. And from you specifically, I want to understand how organizations can guarantee that in the private investment sector with EdTech, that we can really benefit the undersourced communities. So not just, the people who are privileged. Because, you mentioned that you've been in different countries, so you understand what privilege looks like. So how can we guarantee that the undersourced communities are getting something out of it, and they're getting something significant, and that we're not creating a digital divide, yeah? Because sometimes we do that with EdTech. So how can we do that and make sure that the sole focus is not only going on profits in the urban areas and in the urban centers? So please tell us your thoughts.
Great question. As always, maybe my answer is not going to be as straightforward, but that's just the way my mind works. I think we've all read about how a lot of the founders and owners of tech companies don't actually let their children use tech. It is a very well-known irony in the world that people like Mark Zuckerberg, you name it, they don't actually teach their children with technology. And therein lies the real truth of the world that we live in, right? And this is what I mean by, what assumptions are we making sometimes? We need to be very careful. What if the people in the rural areas are actually the ones who are better off than the people in the urban areas? Could it be that we've actually got the equation the wrong way around, right? And so for me, I will always give this caveat that yes, I totally understand the value of technology. However, technology is an enabler, and so it needs to come in once you have a foundation. And I'll go back to what I was saying, that I think that that foundation needs to be practical. You know, when uh, just yesterday, I was sitting somewhere near a mall, and a group of kids who look like they're from Europe. Well, they're not kids. They look like they're in their mid-teens. Were walking around in their sandals, and I was thinking to myself, it is very likely there were a group of maybe 12 of them. It is very likely that one or two of these kids could come from a family that is ridiculously wealthy, unreasonably wealthy, but you would never know. And this is what the smartest people in the world do. They let their children live life, learn through living, learn through experiences. So first of all, let's be careful to not undervalue the the this kind of, I have a unique version of what I call primitive, right? Which is that primitive is origin, it's truth, it's foundational, right? So I've written about this, that the smartest people who get the most out of life, who have children who grow to be exceptional, often do the exact opposite of what we think, or the common perception of what the best thing to do is, which is to give their kids experiences, which is to deny them technology, actually, because you need to be able to execute in order to be able to apply. Once you should apply technology once it can add value to something, right? That's why I personally, I mean, and that's a different thing. I'm kind of against the amount of investment that is being done into Africa, when we don't have roads, when we don't have enough hospitals, when we don't have, you know, we 90% of the investment that comes into Africa is on things, into a place where the fundamentals haven't even been done yet. And this is how we can get confused by the narratives, right? And even though we're fighting it within the limitations. Um, and I just wanted to just mention a few points here, right? That we we often see. Let me use a word like decolonization, right? Which is very common, which we all use, right? That word does not center us. It centers the problem, right? The fact that we were colonized. Why don't we say, I don't, instead of saying, I want to decolonize, I want to enrich my, like some term that means enrich my Africanness. You understand? We, even when we are fighting against the system or trying to change the system, we are so, we, doctor was talking about the fact that, we, by learning about ourselves, we learn about our differences, but we also learn about the things that bring us together. Right now, our education system makes us, we're all our reference, all of us, our reference point is Europe. So I eat eggs, I eat bushmeat, but it's in reference to Africa, it's in reference to Europe. Oh, that's disgusting because Europe doesn't like bushmeat. And I'm using a very raw, they've decided that certain animals are not acceptable. It's only a cow. It's only a cow, which was only done for their own capitalistic reasons, which is fine. But why are we judging each other and trying to work together when we are basing our commonality on someone else's reality and way of being? We can't find commonality because the only commonality that feels that feels comfortable is the one that we share, which is the European, the American, the Westernized, right? Because that's what we are all learning from, and that is the reference point. That is the standard. But when the standard is within us, then we can now have a conversation with each other and say, "Oh, I don't eat bushmeat, but that's cool. I eat this other kind of meat. We eat what are actually insects. What is wrong with that?" To me, like, the Aborigines eat insects like it's normal to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we need to. So that's why I'm like a lot more maybe dramatic about these things than other people, because I I want to like I was saying, I want to deeply enrich myself in being African. I'm not trying to decolonize, right? Um, yeah. So those are some of the points that I just wanted to raise. Please remind me of the questions, because I've gone so far off on the tangents.
First of all, I want to thank you for you give such real life examples, because I think everyone can relate. I saw some people clapping. I have some people from, people of Asian descent here, and they're studying in a European country here in Finland.
Mhm.
So they can also relate. When you give examples and you say that, okay, fine, we're talking about food, but what is
Mhm.
acceptable and according to whom? And
Yeah.
how far off are you from what is acceptable? Because
Yeah.
it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, what, I'm coming into a room and I'm talking about my food, and you're just like, okay. And you come into the room, we're talking about food. Okay, there's nothing more, nothing less.
And the truth is, honestly, Mary, there are so many. There's such deep history behind why people do the things they do in their cultures. You one, right now, let's say insects are being demonized, but somebody in Europe in 20 years from now is going to find out that certain insects have triple the protein, and then it's going to become the cool thing to do, right? Something that Asians and some Asians and Aboriginals have been doing for centuries, but because it did not fit into a particular capitalistic system, it is being demonized.
Yes.
But there's always a reason. Never challenge somebody for the choices that are embedded in their culture. It is never just uh, random. It is never random.
It is not. And you know what? Now that you mentioned insects, and I was thinking about this before I even spoke now, I have actually tasted insects here in Finland. I was
Mhm,
studying in Ham University of Applied Sciences, so where my students go.
mhm,
And I remember we once had this collaboration. We had, I think, a 1 day seminar or something, or it was something to do with our course. And we came all the way from Hämeenlinna to Espoo. So Espoo is near here. And
mhm,
we were at Aalto University. And I remember for lunch, we all went to this really nice, fine restaurant, very
mhm.
Finnish. And do you know what they were serving us? Do you know one of the things that made them famous? Exactly, insects.
Yeah,
Do you know how many people ate at our table? Everyone. So
yeah.
this is the thing. So we have we need to understand that many of the things that many indigenous communities do, whether they are of
Mhm,
Asian descent or African descent or from other parts of the world, many of the things that we do only get acceptable when they are cool or when
yeah,
they are introduced by people who are not from our communities.
yeah.
I can assure you, if a person of Asian or African descent had started their own restaurant, because this is a restaurant, an amazing restaurant, yeah? If
Mhm,
for anyone else in the same location in Finland and they open the same restaurant serving the same insects,
yeah.
it will be a problem. People will be concerned about, what are the health implications? What are the cultural implications? What are they doing? So this is a very amazing example, and this is what we teach when we talk about culture.
And it goes both ways,
Yeah.
because okay, I dated an Asian lady for a period, and they have this thing called dim sum, and one of my favorite dim sums is actually chicken feet. The way they season it is so good. It's amazing. But let me give you the opposite example. we all, you've probably all heard about the fact that shrimps are the cockroaches of the sea. They're literally the cockroaches of the sea. But because shrimps are were something that was easy to fish, it is a delicacy. It is part of it is part of Western culture because it was easy to farm, right? But they are you don't eat cockroaches. We don't eat cockroaches. Almost no culture eats cockroaches, but it is acceptable to eat the cockroaches of the sea because the West decided that that is an easy thing for them to sell. Do you understand? We have to really question ourselves, about the things that the way we judge things and the way we see ourselves, and have pride in our choices, and ask the questions that matter for us. So yeah, it's something that I'm obviously very deeply passionate about because there's so much confusion, right?
Yeah. And I love that. And I'm going to move to, I still want us to talk about sustainable investment. And
Yes.
I want us to now focus, because you do a lot of work. You've worked in marketing, branding,
Mhm.
all this. So I think I think it's important to not just focus on the teaching side. I want
Yeah.
to talk about the communication side, because we are communicating several things. We
Mhm.
want to dismantle this, we want to change this, we want to go back to this. But then at the same time, we're trying to attract investors. We're attracting,
Mhm.
they could be parents, they could be other different kinds of people, teachers, people already in the sector. So I want to know
Mhm.
from you, what role should responsible marketing and transparent communication play in making this attractive, making this an ethical investment to the education sector? And also, how can we hold the investors accountable for all their social impact claims? So now I want us to, you're the best person to go to about truth. We know what
Mhm.
Africa should be doing. So I want us to know, how do we do this? How do we communicate? How do we keep people accountable? How do we make sure that there's social impact? What are we supposed to say about this?
Great question. Great question, and it's actually it's okay. There's levels to this question, right? First of all, let me give you an example of something that just maybe will open up some things that will open up your mind. Diamonds are not rare. You know, the diamonds are not that rare. Like there's a lot of diamonds in the world. There's the limitations that we've created in our idea, in our minds, about the limitations of diamonds and the limitations of even gold. They're not actually true. And actually, silver is a much more valuable and resource than gold, but silver sits below gold. This is manipulation, and that's what marketing is, right? If I'm just being very honest, it's what I do. It's and I but it is very much manipulation, and that manipulation was done specifically to create a reality, right? We have to do the same for ourselves. Everybody has to do the same for themselves. We have to decide what we think is important, right? And start telling stories. Christmas is just uh, is a fabrication. It's a marketing ploy. Having to spend what is it, 3 months of your salary to buy a wedding ring for your wife. It is marketing. It is, you know, eating eggs in the morning. It is marketing. Or cereal. It is marketing. It is none of it, and I mean none of it is real. None of it is based on anything, right? The strongest people on the planet are on this continent, like physically, you know, and they eat meat early in the morning. Meat is in their food. You know what I mean? Like, and the fattest people on the planet, and this is not me judging, are in America, and they eat cereal in the morning. Who should you follow? No, seriously, it's just a blank question. Which one is Which one do you think is sensible for you? Who would you like to be like? You know, we it is so we have to have an agenda that helps us, an agenda that drives the choices that help us. We need to glamorize what's it called? Farming. We need to not glamorize, but we need to pedestalize education. We need we need certain things to have such high priority. And you see, in marketing, one of the things that you do is you never you're there's no point in trying to catch up with somebody who's way ahead. Technology, forget it. Honestly, I mean, I'm not saying nobody should do it, but in the next 100 years, we're not going to become the Silicon Valley of anything. But you know what's also important? Food. You know what's also important? Building things, bridges, hotels, hospitals. And the person who can build those things, I am telling you, will have more power in the long run than the technology person who can only organize those things. I don't know how we got into a world where people think that ideas will ever outstrip execution. It does not happen. It's not the reality, but slowly we're being inculcated into this idea that the greatest thinkers are the ones who are, because right now somebody can say, I want to go to Mars, and somebody throws $1 billion at them or $10 billion at them, right? Because they say they're going to go to Mars. Completely useless for everybody on this planet, but okay, sure. It's not going to last. And if you have long-term vision, you realize, I could go on about this forever, Mary, but a country like the one I grew up in, Holland produces like 60% of the dairy in the world. Holland, like everybody knows a Dutch person. It's a tiny, tiny country. Their engineering feats are some of the highest in the world because the whole country, almost the whole country sits underwater level. That's why it's called the Netherlands. It's below the water level. So their engineers are exceptional. They've engineered a country that exists below the sea level. Yes, but they focused on the thing that they were good at. They didn't try to compete with everybody on everything. We need to compete on the things that we are good at, and we need to decide what being good at matters for us. And if that's going to be education, which I hope it is, or some reconsidered, way of thinking about education, then that's what it is. And then we need to build days. We need to build holidays. We need to build stories. We need to recalibrate our minds as to what we think value is, and that needs to find its way into marketing, into what we see daily, because what you see is attention is. I could go on about this forever, and you should stop me when you're done. But the reason why the West feels like they're winning is because they have our attention. Attention is everything. What you stare at, and let me give a crazy example. And I think I've shared this with you, that if you put a man and a woman on an island, and they hate each other, and leave them there for a year, you'll come back and they're in love. They're in love, and they probably made babies. And I say this, it's funny, but I say this just to say that what you see, what you focus on, becomes your reality. You will fall in love with whatever you stare at the most, and that's why you don't have to, you don't, you don't You don't have to love what you do. And that's maybe a crazy thing to say. You don't have to start out loving what you do. You have to do what's important. And as you get better at it, as you stare at it more, as you work on it, as you make progress on it, you will fall in love with it. We are falling in love with ideas that are not ours. And it's time we fell in love with ideas that come from within us.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's my very long answer. Sorry.
Oh, listen, I listen. You have answered me. You have answered that question that I asked, and you've answered other question that I didn't ask. So we have a lot of information, and it makes me think. But I think you mentioned something about going back to what we call primitive, and I think I would
Hmm.
want you to, because everything is connected, and I see
Yeah.
a connection to what you normally talk about with your content, and I think
Hmm.
I would want us to just like pretend none of us know you, just try to explain, or maybe we know you but not so much. I
Yeah.
want to speak more about primitive logic,
Hmm.
only because I see you making references to that,
Yeah.
and why what you're doing is relevant to Africa, and the unlearning process, we can call it unlearning or
Hmm.
relearning, whatever.
Yeah.
But I want us to just tell us something about primitive logic, your inspiration, what you're doing,
Yeah.
why it's important.
Okay. So primitive logic. That phrase is the name for a newsletter or that I've put out, and it came from this article post that I did about the idea of being primitive. My whole thesis in life is that do not accept the labels that you are given. You don't, and when I say don't accept it, I mean every word, every somebody decided what a word means for them. That doesn't have to mean that that same word means the same for you. You have every right to decide what meaning you assign to things. And words are very important. Just like I was saying, what you stare at, what you look at, the words that you use, they can break you or they can empower you. And primitive has been demonized. And primitive, and it's it I chose it as a word because it has it comes with shame. Do you understand? It comes with the idea of not thinking properly, not thinking things through, not being aware of what is possible. It's a very diminishing word, right? But what is it really? It talks about it's about the past. And I always say that we for 300,000 years, whether you're with uh, Africa has been around a long time, whether you're religious or not. Africa has been around a long time, and our systems, our systems worked. They worked for us as human beings. They worked for our environment. We never had a climate crisis. There was no such thing as a climate crisis, ever. In 300,000 years or however long you think the world has existed, there was no such thing. There was no obesity issue. We don't even have a word for depression in most of our languages because it wasn't a thing. I'm not saying people weren't depressed, but I'm saying that the community dealt with it differently. And we need to give respect. We need to respect who we were in order to believe we can be anything else. Right? So for me, reclaiming that word primitive is about respecting myself and respecting who we are and respecting that what we had was not was not brittle, was not weak, it was not backwards, it was not it was not it was the exact opposite. It was excellence. It was a focus on the things that actually matter, the things that give life meaning, that make you want to wake up in the morning, that lets you know who the people are around you. the things that when you are lying on your deathbed, and this is a big thing for me, like when you're lying on your deathbed, you don't have regrets. That you feel like I lived a full life. I was surrounded by my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, because I lived so long that I was able to see them. I was able to see the progress. We don't have that anymore. Because advanced is me living by myself alone in a room by my working as many hours as possible to make money that I give back to the government, and my parents live somewhere else because I don't have time for them. They, I'm done with them. They're done with me and I'm done with them, right? And like, do we, because that's a reality. When you say the word advanced in isolation, it sounds fancy, it sounds beautiful, like, progressive. But let's talk about what it really is. And what it really is this dysfunctional, depressing, hungry for porn, hungry for distraction, hungry for 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 instant gratification. Is that really what we want? And that's so I'm just trying to introduce a new kind of logic, right? A logic based on reality. I would rather have primitive logic than our current day advanced logic. That doesn't mean I'm against technology. It just means this reality that we have, I want to deal with it as it is and navigate it in a way that is honest. Let's talk about things the way they honestly are, not in this kind of romanticized, way. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think this kind of, reclaiming something that is ours and not doing it in a way that we are seeking permission. We are not trying
Yeah,
we are not trying to accept something or go back to something, we have to do it in a way. No, I love the way that you present this. It's simply about we are the focus and that's it. And there's no
yeah,
comparison being made. And I think
yeah.
if we did this, if we learned this in class, remember being in class when you were young and
Mhm.
you're being taught this is what happened in this year, this is what happened in this year, or this is how you mix this and you get this. Can you imagine how different it would be if we were able to bring in our ancestors or our own ways, let's just say our own ways or beliefs into this
Mhm.
conversation? The same way everyone else is learning, for example, chemistry in Finnish, Swedish,
Mhm.
Dutch, and everything. Can you imagine if we are able to do these things and bring in our own beliefs or cultures some way and make the children think?
Yeah,
You give examples. And I think Dr. Utheri said the same thing,
yeah,
where you're just letting the child know, yeah, this is what you did, but why did you do it? Your
yeah.
community, this is how they did this. So I love that everything we've discussed is kind of connected. So going back to that primitive logic, and I think a
Mhm.
lot of people will understand you more now, the way
Mhm.
you explain it, because I think sometimes when you're reading things, it's very easy to
Yeah,
misinterpret or misunderstand what is being said. But when you actually
yeah.
hear a person explain things, exactly as they are with no interruption, I think you've done a very good job with that. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for that. And so now I have a question for everyone, because I want the people in the audience to just be involved. If anyone has an answer to this, I would love to hear it. And my question to everyone is that uh, I give a lot to bringing the African communities together, not just together, but doing things with one another and, having partnerships. I want to know what single concrete steps you have or each person has here that we can commit to today to make improvements in the collaborations we have in the private sector and in the grassroots community initiatives. What single step can we do to improve this intra-African relationships? So if anyone has an answer to that, please let us know. In the meantime, I think, David, you can go ahead and help us just conclude this session. Give us your final thoughts. What do you
Yeah,
think? Just conclude everything you told us. And
Yeah. Okay. Thank
What
you.
should we do moving forward?
Thank you. And I think I want to start off by echoing what the doctor actually said to you. I want to also encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. It's hard and it's thankless work, but I, in answer to the question that you just asked your audience, this is what more people need to just realize. It's you don't always. It's not. Life cannot be only about the things that make you popular. Life cannot only be about the things that make you money. Life can, yes, you need those things, but you need things that give you fulfillment, right? And you need to have a balance. Um, I'm not getting paid for this, you're not getting paid for this, but this is necessary work. It doesn't take anything away from us, but it actually brings clarity to the work that we do get paid for, right? And it brings energy and vitality to the things that and to our sense of achievement, because we feel like we're contributing, even if it's a drop in the ocean of Africa's challenges. I don't mind if it's just a drop. I want, if I can just add one drop every day, that's okay for me, right? And so I want to encourage you to keep doing this kind of work and not be disheartened, or it is vital work. And also it is important to remember that somebody has to set the example. It's as very, very important. I come on, do these kind of events, not because, some people know that I'm busy. But what is busy? Like, busy is, yes, I'm busy doing a lot of things, but this is really important to me. This is, I can't tell you how important these kind of conversations are to me. And so if I can do it, somebody else can do it, you know? So yeah, first of all, just thank you for doing it. Don't ever stop doing it. And that kind of leads me into the next thing, which is more of us need to do this. More of us need to work together. In answer to the question you asked the audience, and it doesn't have to be major. We need to work together. We need to work together, and we need to not everybody has to start something brand new. This is yours, and I am more than grateful to be able to just jump on here, make my contribution, and jump off, and or continue with something else. It the change that we need, it's in little micro steps, you know. And sometimes when I first became a chief marketing officer, one of the things I said to my team was that when you stand up in a foreign or Western boardroom and you say, "I helped us grow by 2%," you will get a standing ovation. We need to start respecting incremental improvement. Not everything happens in big, huge leaps. We need to respect incremental, tiny, tiny bits of progress, and sometimes even going back to, in order to come back stronger. We need to respect the 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 arduous nature of progress, because progress is not linear. It is never linear in any place, right? So yeah, that is my general. Let me get to the point of what you actually asked me to do, and that is it. I think, if I was to summarize what we've talked about here today, it's about the fact that we are not focusing. There is not enough attention, that word again, on something that is so critical. We keep complaining, or you're not complaining, but we have a wish for ourselves, our children, our descendants, and that wish can never be fulfilled, and we have to accept that can never be fulfilled by focusing on today's problem. We need to work on a problem, on a way of solving that problem tomorrow, next week, next year, right? And 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 our best solution is not to go as far forward as possible. Our best solution is to go as far back as possible, right? And Dr. Utheri was talked a lot about understanding that we have every right. We have every right to center ourselves, to center our belief systems, to center our and to with intentionality generate pride in who we are and what we represent and where we come from, why it matters, you know. And I really loved one of the things she said about the fact that in everything our identity must be central, whether it's history, whether it's science, in everything, technology, our identity must be central. One of your questions was around how we use technology to but the point is, even if when we do use technology, it should be centered around who we are, not like I said, a Western centric idea of who we are, right? And it should support our indigenous tendencies, nature, um uh disposition, the way we operate. And but that means we have to unearth who we are before we can apply that technology to it, right? That technology is not going to unearth it for us, right? So we have to invest in ourselves, and that investment is in repositioning ourselves as central, is in understanding that our the 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 the, the most important building blocks are the earliest building blocks, right? And yeah, and if we are able to do that for consistently, um and I'll add just one thing that maybe wasn't touched on, but we are always working within a box, right? The African Union has failed us in many ways, right? The African Free Trade Zone, all of these things, they have failed us. And so we have become we almost don't talk about the fact that we can create bodies. We can create our own curriculum. We don't have to have an African, what was it? There was a word you guys used. Um, I'm just trying to just, um, yeah, yeah, an African influenced curriculum. Forget it. I wanted to use the F word, but yeah, forget an African, influence curriculum. How about having an African curriculum? I went to the IB. It's a great system, by the way. But I didn't know that it was completely independent. If there can be an independent international platform, why can't there be an independent African one? I don't, or even 5 different ones, or even 10 different ones. Why do we have to have permission, or which we know we'll never get, by the way, right? It will always be delayed until, or feel like we must work within a box. If we validate our own curriculum, nobody came to us. Nobody has ever come to us to ask for permission to create a body. Nobody has ever. It has never even. I dare say it has never crossed their minds that 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 our votes should count towards any institution that they create. So anyway, that's I'm going on. I'm slowly going off on my own tangent, but yes, education is really the key. And we all say the children are our future. Education is the key. Da, da, da. We need to stop. We need to stop all of that. We need to. We need to. We. It's the words are not important as the actions. So the action, do the action. I don't want to hear it. I want to see it. And I think uh, our dear doctor, also we just want to see it. Quit the we believe in the children, we care about the next generation. No, stop saying it. Just show me. Show me through your actions. And I don't need you to make it your full-time job. Carve out half an hour. I swear, I'm perfectly okay. Half an hour. If every African did something towards, supporting early stage development, half an hour every day, every week, or hell, I don't care if it's half an hour every month, we would be in a different situation. In fact, if just 3% of Africans did that, we would be in a different position because there's so many of us. So anyway, like I said, I go off on long tangents. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this, for this platform, and well done. Keep going. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I think the benefit of this is that, I think for people who are going to hear you and the way you reason, the way you think, the way you connect every single thing and not just make it about one thing, I think people will be able to understand how you write, why you write for Africa, why you speak for Africa, why you defend Africa. And I think you're one of the bravest people that I know on LinkedIn. Just you're not focused on what people think. You're focused on centering Africa. I think that's been guided,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's always
Yeah.
about, okay, this is Africa. Everything else is
Mm-hmm.
comes after, and it's not about
Mm-hmm.
always agreeing or saying something. Like
Mm-hmm.
like why do we need to have an IB that is based on like many of
That's
us
right.
weren't even thinking that. Like I wasn't thinking that, but I'm like, okay, yeah, actually, why? So it's not always about following and just doing things because others are doing them. Why don't we have different systems? Why do we have don't we have different bodies? We can there's actually nothing stopping us. But this again goes back to investments. We have this thing,
Mm-hmm.
we only invest in what other people are investing in. We only want to follow technologies that others are creating. Well, that's not being fair.
Mm-hmm.
I will take that back, and I will say,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Kenya was the first to do M-Pesa. So we did this
Mm-hmm.
the first time in 2007. We were the first people who were able to transfer money using mobile gadgets without having a bank account. So you could send money to other people just having a SIM card and, align with Safaricom. So I do think we are brilliant people as Africans, but I think most of the time we're about emulating, following rules. And this is something I see in myself a lot, especially when I'm with people who are very, you know,
Rigid.
yeah. And so we need to even those of us who are in spaces where we are teaching or we are guiding or we are supporting, whatever name you want to use, leading, even coaching or being consultants, a word you're not a huge
Mm-hmm.
fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we are doing, we have to understand as well that we need to do the work.
Yeah.
So it's not one.
And can I say something? Can I say something about something you just said? I
Yeah.
just want to make a quick point that, the world has us believing that money is the way to do things. And yes, in certain, I worked for a company that is now doing, in Africa, there's now doing, I think, somewhere in the region of 200 million in annual revenue. They've never taken a dime in not a single cent in investment. Later on, they took loans, but but that was long after they'd gone over the $8 million dollar revenue point. But the point I'm trying to make is that you don't. Sometimes that's why I always say you have to go back to first principles. Is the question we're asking even, is it really about money? Because first and foremost, we need participation, we need appreciation, and we need attention. Those things, once you have those things, the money will follow. Money is not the immediate problem. And it's hard because, like, we need, we want to make progress. But money can be dangerous, and we've seen this in other markets, right? We see these companies that blow up, they get literally $1 billion on day 10, and 6 years later they are zero. There is something to be there's something to be appreciated about 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 driving things through passion, through to participation, through and then getting money. Investors don't invest in something that is static. Do you know that investors only invest in companies that where they once a company is on a certain trajectory, it is already doing well at a small scale. That is what investors invest in.
Yeah.
So the conversation we're having, it should start with: is this education system we have now, does it promise an outcome? It is on a clear trajectory. And investors don't see that, because if they did, they'd be investing already. So we have to separate the conversation into its components, right? First of all, we have the foundation. Second of all, is it showing a clear outcome? If we do the right things, it's automatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Money chases opportunity, and it doesn't. So if money's not chasing you, you're not showing enough of an opportunity. That's it.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, this is now, I'm now connecting what you're saying is connected to what Dr. Utheri said, because she said that this is in the works where they want to start training teachers. So now that you're saying this, I'm thinking, even if we already know Dr. Utheri is doing that with their school, they've been doing this for years, yeah? But if we were to actually take this more seriously, and we're talking about investments and everything, do we have, remember they want to train people, do we have the right people to do this? Are they prepared? Do we have people who are ready to do the work in
The
this?
right support systems? Do we, are we looking at the right parts of our curriculum? Are we just trying to shoehorn our culture into another system that doesn't really accommodate it? So it's like we have to bend ourselves to fit a system. You don't win like that,
Yeah.
If anything, their system should, because that's how it works. When we go there, we have to adjust to their system. When they come here, they should be adjusting to ours. It's not complicated.
It's the basics, the bare minimum, and it's not even about it's the right thing, and it's not about it's a respectful thing. It's just
it's how everybody works.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we have a lot of work. I conclude by saying that we have a lot of work in building our own confidence, because it starts with confidence. If you do not have the confidence to, whether it's to start a business, I understand what you're saying. It's not about money, but to where you think, what, I can do this, I can win, and whatever hurdles I come across, I will just jump over them. You need confidence. So we first need to make sure that we have the confidence. We need the confidence to do the work, to continue the work, and to be able to attract people into it. Because if you don't have the confidence, you could be speaking every day, but no one is going to want to invest. Because again, this is not a sector where, this specific thing that we're trying to do, change in an educational system, this is not the same thing as coming with an app and telling people, okay, I have this app, it's going to do this for this, and the investors are already think, yeah, you can actually use this in Tanzania, in 30 countries. It's not the same thing. You're not coming. We have this return, we're going to see them in the next 1 or 2 years, and you're not already showing that, we're on this trajectory, we are winning. So yeah, we need to gain the confidence, and we need to know what we're doing. We need to already start preparing ourselves, whether it's teachers, whether it's also parents, the mentality, because many parents are the ones at home who are telling their children, you should not be speaking in this language because you're not going to get a job, you're not going to be able to go to America. Let's be honest, parents play a role in keeping children in this state where they want to be either westernized, Arabized. Now we have people who are saying this in African. I've seen some people from, even Kenya, Nigeria saying, okay, let's start learning Chinese. So the first thing you think, especially if you're, business focused, you're thinking, yeah, why not? Yeah. We've achieved this from learning English. We've achieved this from learning Portuguese and French. So it's not just being westernized or Arabized. We are now something else. I don't have a word for it. Top. And we need to be more Africanized. And this is a comment I made yesterday. I said, we are not Africanizing ourselves, and that's what we need to do. So Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
love to have another conversation with you. We have
We
so
should
much
do it again.
to cover. And thank you so much for the wisdom. Thank you for sharing your motivations. And it's good to know that you're going to be doing this. You are doing this primitive logic newsletter, because then we are going to be able to understand how to center being African. And I appreciate that you also very honest in saying, you know what, you're not really with the word decolonization, because it's again focusing on other people. And this is what we need. We need to have people with different ideas at the table. We already used to going to the table with the same either Western idea, either Arabized idea, either Eastern or an Eastern idea. We need to come to the table and understand that you can have a different mindset, you can have different ideas, but we need to work on the ideas we already have. You're not innovative. We don't need to start from scratch. So I hear you, and thank you so much, David. Everyone, if you want to learn more from David, just go to his LinkedIn page, go to Cole as well. Yeah, so let's remember our role, and let's spend that 30 minutes or whatever, just a small drop, it counts. And let us meet again. Thank you so much, Asanteni Sana. And have a lovely rest or the end of the year, everyone. Asanteni Sana. Bye-bye.